My family got to go to Legoland this past fall or winter, whatever, and when we were there, this came up in Duplo Land. And Duplo Land, of course, is for the 2, 3, 4-year-old children. And this was standing up right in front of the Duplo farm. And on it says the chicken is related to T-Rex. And underneath it, chicken lay eggs in many colors. Some are even of blue. Anybody struggle with that a little bit? That we can bring teaching into our culture, into our children, that can be as abrupt as that with no thing, but because it was in Legoland, because it was in writing, because it was in a well-done presentation, then people can believe it. And I think that this is just a simple thing, but not to bore you with it, but this is all over. It's in our TV shows, it's in our books, it's in our children's books, it's in our children's TV, that there is a goal to indoctrinate children today. And if we don't learn to catch it and don't learn to, Titus started laughing at that, and that's how I noticed it. He was laughing. And Titus is 11, and he said, "Dad, did you read that one? That was like as dumb as it can be." Well, he hears this a little bit. But I wonder how many, and we were watching people, and they all just said, "Oh, that's cute." Wow, I didn't know that. Those were the comments we were hearing of other families who were reading the same little post sign that was there. But it's a thing that when we're looking at our culture and we look at what's put in front of us, that we realize what is the role of the parent and what is the role of ministries that are helping parents to train up their children. Living Waters cannot usurp the authority of the parent. It can only come along and support and strengthen the role of the parent. And so this article that was, I don't know if you guys get CPYU. They have some great podcasts right now that there's 3 that are available. If you listen to number 2, it helps to know where our teens are, where you guys are, some of you teens, and some of the decisions that are going on. And in that one that's in this week that I listened to, I don't know when it first came out, but I listened to it. It was amazing that today's young people, not everybody, and probably hopefully not you, but it was amazing the number of young people that are finding their dates online on websites and through chat rooms. And the comment was that we don't want to just go out with our friends because then it might be serious. We'd rather go out with somebody that's exciting and unknown. And the thrill of the unknown captivates the spirit of the young person today. And I don't know about you guys, but to me, as a dad, and as a person that works at a camp in a ministry, and I see young people that come in, and even many of you that serve, which we're just so thankful for, but it's a challenge to me of, am I aware of this is where our culture is today? So in this article from CPYU, you can just go on cpyu.org, and a lot of the things, he doesn't, Walt Mueller, who's head of it, the president, does not direct you to tell you what to do. But he tells, it's a website that you can go and see what is happening and what are some of the challenges before us in working with young people and families today. But so this article comes from there. I have 5 copies of the article if people want to print it, to take it and read the whole thing. But just, I watched a cute 2-year-old girl, took out her parents in the middle, kind of like the thing that Dave was showing before, of a crowded airport concourse. She jumped up and down, screamed her demands over and over, and eventually won out as her parents caved and gave in. Her cuteness diminished quickly, and while she won the confrontation, she really was losing out. As God Providence would have it, I witnessed this high-volume drama as I was reading while waiting for my next flight. And I was reading The Collapse of Parenting, How We Hurt Our Kids When We Treat Them Like Grown-Ups. The irony that's going on. I'm reading this book about what we should be doing, and I'm watching it in the airport. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that, and I've seen it in my own house. I've seen it with my grandchildren. I've seen it with foster kids when we have them, and I've seen it with neighbors. I've seen it with people in our church where children are having a fit. Well, having a fit isn't the problem. Children will have that no matter who and where you come from. The difference is how parents respond to it today. That is what's scary. So he's reading that book, and then as he goes on, a new book by a physician, and it's evidence to back up his claim that while parents are spending more and more time and money on parenting, things are getting worse and worse with our kids rather than better. And that's the confusing point. That if we are at a point where parents want to be better parents and parents have that desire, what we're ending up doing, though, is that we're really in a place where there's been a massive transfer of authority from the parent to the child. Where we ask the children, what do you want to do? Where we ask the children, would you like this? And so what's happening, and the challenge is God has given the parent to be the parented responsibility to train up a child in the way they go, that when they grow old, they won't depart from it. But if the child's setting their own course, the child has not been experienced, and as most of you know, how many of you like every time your parents tell you no? How many like it ever when they tell you no? How many of you, when you grew up and you became your own parent, were glad that your parents told you no? Okay? We get a lot wiser when we go into that role. Matter of fact, for me, Raymond, unfortunately, got named after my dad. Because when I was young, and I used to think my dad knew everything when I was like 5, 6, 7, maybe even 8. When I got 10, 11, 12, I thought my dad was the dumbest man in the world. And the day that I walked out of the home and went to college, literally on that day, I remember driving up 500 miles to go to college. On that day, I realized my dad did the best job he knew how. And on that day, I decided my first son would be named after my dad. I wasn't even a Christian then. But I decided that my dad had so much wisdom that I finally appreciated when I left it. And that's why it's when they grow old, they won't depart from it. And I just say that because so many times, even in ministries, we are falling short of not giving structure that this is what we're here to do and this is what we're not doing. And we want to be able to help parents, we want to be able to help children, that it's not just your mom and dad who says yes and no and do it this way, this is God's way. That they can come to a ministry and find that same support. And so as he's writing this article, and he says in many families what kids think and what kids like and what kids want matters as much or more than what their parents think and like and want. Matter of fact, a lot of marketing tools say don't always market to the parent, market to the child. If you want kids to come to camp, the kids are making the decisions in homes today. I'm thinking, like, who pays for it? It's just like crazy. Like, where's the authority here? And Sachs, the author of the article, and by abdicating their parental authority, kids no longer learn about beliefs and behaviors from dad and mom. Because if we associate authority with God, and God's authority puts authority to who? To mom and dad and the governing authorities. And so when the governing authorities don't take the governing responsibility, the children now take it upon themselves. They now lose hope in authority. Their trust is not in authority because my trust didn't tell me where my borders were in the past. And instead, they learn from their peers who are living in the same culture, wandering in the same ocean, in a boat with no direction and no power because they've not learned to see it through Christ. So there's 3 perspectives. Whoops. Something happened and encountered a problem. To PowerPoint all the way out. So there's 3 perspectives. First, we must teach humility. I want you to realize that the rest of this talk, we're going to see some affirmations and some crossover, both from what Dave said and what Paul said today. Because what I want you to realize is the culture is affirming that what Living Waters is doing and what we feel that God is doing and how he wants to use Living Waters is that the very things that we're trying to do are the things that we feel that are helping to combat the culture. That they're not just out there by randomness, that they're urgent and important, and this is what we feel how God would want us to respond. So in this article it said first we teach humility. What's Dave been sharing today? What did Paul bring up in his teaching of servant leaders? And in today's world, we're told to look out for ourselves, think highly of ourselves, use others as a means to our ends, teaching our kids to pursue lives of humility leads to gratitude, appreciation, and contentment. I also went to some other seminars and listened to a webinar 2 weeks ago, and it talked about how if you want to help people who are struggling with when they're depressed, is that you need to have two major things that are in common with much of how to help the people who are depressed. One, help them to see thankfulness. Two, help them to serve others. And why does that seem so strange? It just affirms some of the things that we've been learning, is that our bodies have been designed and created. The only thing we've been created for is good works. For service. And not the good works of random acts of kindness and pay it forward and just where everybody comes and hangs out, but the sacrificial service as Jesus didn't come in the world to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom. And so if we're going to teach like that, then we need to live like that. And we need to help others have an opportunity to serve like that. And so when you guys think about camps and when we have them clean up their dorms or help clean tables, or on Fridays at high school camps to be able to do service projects, those are all things that aren't there by chance. They aren't there because we don't have enough activities we could be doing. They're there because they're intentional in helping to see people. And actually, for years, very often we will find on the evaluations the highlight of the week was going to the nursing home and helping the old people. The highlight of the week was cleaning up the park. The highlight of the week, there were service project things. Why? Because when we do that, when we go outside of ourselves to serve others, God has created that actually in the very top of your brain. One half of the top, in the very top is the response to good works, that good feeling that you get when you do something well done. The other half of the brain at the top is that when we draw our hearts to be thankful, we worship. Does that amaze anybody that those two parts of the brain are connected to anything? That they're right there, firing off of each other? That when we serve and when we think of others more highly than ourselves, when that husband serves his wife because he loves her, it causes him to be thankful for her, to worship her, and to what? It's totally done when he's thanking God, because then it's totally climaxed the way he's been designed to be electrically wired that way by an almighty God. And I just think it's incredible when you see in a big guys that teach our kids to pursue lives, and Sachs says eliminate our teens' use of social media. Man, how many young people in the last couple of years hate when we take all the media away, the phones and stuff? Honestly, anybody? Honest? None of you guys that bothered any of us? None of you girls? Not even the first day? Come on. Okay, good. Thanks for being honest. It bothers me. My wife has this rule that I can't take my phone to bed. She's not even in it. She's doing all this other stuff, and about a half hour later she comes to bed. I'm thinking, like, what a good use of time. I get 2 more emails done. I like those rules. But you know what? Those are rules that help me to think about my wife. Those are guidelines that help us to get rid of the electronics, to think about others more important than ourselves. It takes away the distraction of what I want to do, to think about what others need. And so that comes back through chores, through serving is a good starting point. So we got humility and serving on the first one. The second one, devote yourselves completely to your teen or child, and it's the parents. And people is also, when we're at camp and when you're a teacher, when you're doing food service, when you're doing in the dorm leading, that the kids see that we're not distracted by all the other things and people, but that our focus is on them. I already know who Titus wants to be in his dorm leaders. He has one dorm leader request every year, and it's not to put anybody else down. But it's Stephen looked. And you know why I want Stephen look? I asked him, I said, why do you want Stephen? Is he more fun? And does he, do crazier things? Does he break the camp rules? I really want to know that one. And he goes through all those, I go through all this list. He says, Dad, Stephen cares about us when we're in his dorm. Wow. Titus is not a very good camper at times, or a very good child at times. He's like his mother at times. But he's not the best little kid, but he sees who cares about him. He sees who cares about him. And that's a challenge to all of us. Whether we're teachers, when we're in the classroom, do we really show we care? Do we show that we want to get through the material? Right? Do they see us when they see us in line? Do we remember their names and give them a high five or give them a pat on the back? Know their name. How's it going? What did you like about class today? Or what did you learn in class today? What did you learn in the nature program today? Asking them about what their life is experiencing. So that we can devote ourselves, and it says, don't cram your kids' life so full of activities. That one is a real challenge, because every year we come up with 5 new ideas, and we have the same time we had last year. So what do we take out of our program so that there can be a time to contemplate, a time to hang out, a time to talk, a time to think about what they learned today? I know at Foundation Camp, the wagon leaders in those groups have said, we need a full hour at night to talk with the girls. We need a full hour to talk with the guys at night. There's not enough time. We need to shorten things up. We need to end the day earlier so that there's time to reflect, time to know that they want to be with each other. So finally, help your teens see that the primary purpose should be prepare them for a life of virtuous living. Don't just reinforce the middle class achievement script. In other words, why am I going to school? Why am I going to go to college? How many times is to get a good job, make lots of money? Or is it so that I can be a better servant? Do you know the original days when doctors became doctors, that there was a thing that they said, hey, we're going to get paid in a chicken. We're going to get paid in this, right? And I know that when I go into a doctor's office who says, I've had a doctor before, looked at his watch, oh, your 10 minutes is up, I got to go. And I know that there's a schedule. I understand that. But I went to a dentist last week, and I had to get in early because the crown fell off, and they fit me in a schedule, and they still took and asked me, Dennis, how's it going at camp? Dennis, how was the mission trip? Dennis. And I'm thinking, like, you guys are getting paid a little too much to be sitting here talking to me. But I want you to know that I don't mind the 2-hour drive to go see them. One, because they give it to me, but two, because it's just a great friendship. And I feel like they care about the ministry, and they want to be committed. They're committed to our lives. And I think I bring that back to camp and say, man, what am I telling kids when I say, your clothes look so nice? That's a cool shirt. That's a cool pair of shoes. Versus, it is, and not that we can't do that. Because for some kids who haven't changed all week, that's great that you have a clean pair of clothes on. But how about the kid to say, who doesn't have that money, who can say, it was awesome how you cared. It was awesome how you listened. It was awesome how you really seem to care about the things of the Lord. What does that tell young people? What does that tell children? That the virtuous life, the life of living for Christ, is what's really most important. And you know what we do when we sit in the back of a room and we're talking while the teacher's talking? What did we just tell every single camper, every single person in the room? That what that guy has to say is not important. Not important. And it's a challenge to me too, not just to you. I'm not saying anybody in this room has ever done that, but these are things that the Lord has shown to me that these are important things. These are important things. These are power in God's Word. And then finally, help your teens see that prepare them for life. We've got that one. And that God's Word says to train up a child in the way they should go. Train up a child in the way that they should go. This is why we want to train at Living Waters. We don't just say teach. We actually skip over the word teach because it's implied in training. But it tells us that we want to reach the lost, and then it says train and equip individuals to become servant leaders. Training means that it's modeled, and two, that they can model it while they're at camp. But they have opportunities to do that. And the way that we train is that when we see those things happening, we can say yes. We can affirm, we can encourage, we can build up that this is a godly, virtuous way to live our lives. And for some kids, they've never been affirmed to a virtuous life who come to camp. And I want you to know that's why kids are put as a highlight of their summer, because somebody affirmed them. More than that they just played a game. Matter of fact, if they play a game and you yell at them during it, they will hate that game. Or they went to class and you yelled at them because they gave the wrong answer or made fun of them instead of encourage them. In our culture today, 1 Chronicles reminds us of Issachar, men who had understanding of the times to know what Israel ought to do. The reason this is a challenge to me is there is a challenge amongst us all the time. Let's have fun. Let's have fun. I send my camps, even parents sometimes say, I send my kids to have a week of fun at camp. And is fun very important in Living Waters? By all means. Is that primary? No. That's not primary. Our primary goal is to help draw the hearts of children and young people and families to the heart of Jesus Christ. We want to help build that servant leader mindset in our families and in our own lives. To realize that change is one generation away, that the culture knows, media knows that I can change the culture in one generation. One generation, they know. Change is always one away, the scientist said. So if we can plant the seeds of doubt in our children, religion will go away in a generation, or at least largely go away, and that's what I think we have an obligation to do. Obviously, not a man of God who put that quote out there. To realize that we need to be prepared. I appreciate what Paul did, tried to give some responses. I hope everybody in their mind when Paul was giving those responses said, I wouldn't say it exactly like that. Because if you just read it and he read it and you didn't even think about it, then that's not going to stick with you. But when he read it and when Dave talked about different responses and different things that you would go in your mind, that's not how I would do it. I would do it this way. The whole point of it is that, but in your hearts, honor Christ the Lord as holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you. Yet do it with gentleness and respect. I had a dad last week. I had 4 conversations in less than 1 week, or 1 week and a day, of parents calling, setting up meetings, people I didn't even know in one case at all, emailing me and asking, I have a problem, what can I do? A problem with a child. So one of the dads, and I said, can I tell you what I had to learn? I had to quit yelling at my kids when I was trying to talk to them. I had to start listening to my children instead of talking the whole time. I had to quit demanding that they do it my way instead of trying to understand what hurt they're going through. And I said, from what I know of you, that's the same problem you have. Oh. So it wasn't like, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong. I said, this is what I've done wrong. And we need to come across and to help people and to listen to people. To listen to people. One lady, she told me today, she said, I remember 2 years ago, you told me, talk less, listen more. I said, I wish I would learn that lesson. Because I can know it, but it's hard to do. But these are things that we have to be able to be ready to do in our culture with kids and families that are coming to Living Waters today. Our culture used to be that the people that came to camp could just sit around and enjoy, because most of the people came with a God-fearing, God-understanding, servant mindset to live for Jesus. And I want you to know that is half a generation ago that we used to have that. We do not have that today. When you come to camp, you cannot look it through your own filter, your own worldview, and your own lifestyle. You have to come prepared and ready to do that. That's why we have the goals that we do, the objectives that we do. That's why when we look at our vision and mission statement, we look at our statement of faith, people, we used to tell people, you assumed that everybody believed what we did, that when they read our statement of faith and they just signed it, how many of you probably didn't even read it? And most of the people in this room, that's probably fine, but I want you to know that there are people who want to come to camp and serve today that don't even agree with maybe 3/4 of our statement of faith, let alone some of our teaching distinctives. That there are people that are coming to camp that think it's wrong to take a stand on one man and one woman marriage. There are people that want to come and work at camp that said, who cares? And I want you to know that's where our culture is. And I want to end this with the core strategy. That's why we like families coming to camp, so that they can see mom and dad and children at camp. We want teachers, not just speakers, because we want the small group. We want the teacher to be able to have 8 or 10 or 12 kids rather than 40 or 50 kids and not connect with any of them. That's why we want to use creation and adventure, because we want God to speak through his creation to individuals. That's why we want time for building relationships, so that there's time for that. We want training of staff and volunteers, because I do not think that, even when I get out, Paul was kind of laughing at me yesterday, like, it took you 2 years to figure out the culture's changed this much, Dennis? He said he was like that. And I said, well, that's the problem. You were such a bad kid when you were growing up. It took me, no, it's a thing like, I'm not aware of the culture that's around me. And sometimes the culture that we're in, that we don't realize the effect it has then on when we teach God's word. Why it's important that servant leaders aren't just people who give and serve a week at camp, but that it's a way of life, because kids see through our efforts. That's why we need missional-minded and support. That's why our staff, we're moving all of our staff to working towards helping to earn or helping to get 100% of their support. Because the fees at camps and the camps today, that kids can't afford it. And that's why we're not afraid to ask people to help contribute when you come to camp, because I know when I go to Mexico, our family pays to go on the mission trip just like other people. Why? Because it changes my attitude when I go, if there's a sacrifice that comes with it. And so it's just an incredible reminder for that. And again, I want to close with this, is we want to worship our Creator God. The importance of exploring, discovering wonder in worship, that we can work on that in our lives. May God help us as we are in a different culture today.